Roll call, we all here. Next thing will be a pledge of allegiance. All stand. I pledge allegiance to the flags of the United States of America and to the republic of which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next on the agenda is comments from community staff members. Any comments from the community? Sorry about that. Phone is on. And no comments for the staff? All righty, we'll move right along. Necromance Recognition, Dr. Tony.
Yes,
Lynn.
yes, sir. Well, I'm joined with Lynn Rossellini tonight to offer some recognition to staff and community members. We were going to start off with recognizing our Ording High School Daffodil Princess and senior student board member, Ava Fritz, but she told us that she may be joining us around 6:30. So near the end of the meeting, we will recognize her one more time before we close. But it's a great thrill to see Ava so excited, and the recognition she's receiving is just great to see. So I'm looking forward to seeing her later on in the meeting.
I'm here, Tony.
She's here.
Ava.
She's
There
there,
you are.
Tony.
There she is. At the bottom of the screen, my screen.
Oh, we're so glad
Top of mind.
you're able to join us right away. We're very proud of you, Ava, and I know that you've received a lot of notes from people in the community and staff, and I was just thrilled to learn that you became our Ording High School representative as Princess on the Daffodil Float. I think it's all going to happen virtually, though, this year. But maybe you can tell us a little bit more about what's going on with the recognition in the Daffodil Parade.
Yes, so I just want to say thank you guys so much for everything. And so I don't really know how much I'm supposed to say, but like I don't really know, but I do know that we're having our promenade on the March 29th, and it's going to be in person. But like the guest is just limited. We're only allowed to bring 4 people, like from our families and stuff. But we are having our promenade, and we plan on having Queen's coronation, so that's exciting. And there are plans for parade, but I'm not sure exactly how much I'm supposed to say, and it's not finalized or anything, but there is going to be something. So exciting things to look forward to, and obviously it's nothing like normal, but they're definitely trying their very hardest, and they're doing a great job of making it seem like as normal as possible. So I'm very excited.
Oh, come on, Ava. We're family. You can give us the clue.
Okay.
You don't have to spill the beans.
All I know is that they're partnering with the Washington State Fair, and I think it might be something where like we don't move, but cars drive through type of thing. That's all I really know, honestly.
Well, it's going to be a great life-changing experience. You'll remember it forever. So
yes, I'm very excited.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
In continuing our recognition, we have school counselors are being recognized, National School Counseling Week. We've recognized them already, and I sent them a note, of course, but we're also recognizing this evening Penny Nelson Schlegel, Shelley Smith, Joshua Thayer, Robin Joy, April Reynolds, Karina Schoonover, and Deb Noble Perry. So we want to thank our counselors for doing such a great job, especially now under these circumstances. Their expertise is greatly appreciated. So I want to thank them for their continued work. We also are going to be recognizing our school bus drivers on February 22nd. Our hardworking and dedicated bus drivers are the first ones to greet our students every day and to take them home at the end of the day. And they develop wonderful relationships with our students, and got a chance to see that happen last week as our drivers were picking up our students at the various spots, bus stops, seeing the little kids with their masks on, excited, holding hands with their mothers and fathers. It was great. And then we boarded the bus, and there was the bus driver knew the names of the individuals coming on the bus, and it was really, really a great welcoming gesture on behalf of the bus driver. So special thanks to our drivers. Next, we have Lynn Rossellini, who will recognize our nationally board certified teachers.
Thank you, Tony. We know that our teachers work hard every day to provide absolutely the best program for our students. And some of our teachers go above and beyond and work to earn their national board certification. And this program is designed to develop, retain, and recognize the accomplishments of our teachers and to generate an idea of ongoing and constant improvement. It's a nationwide movement. It is one of the most respected professional certifications that a teacher can earn. And we have teachers in our district who have been doing this work for over 20 years. And names that you will recognize: Tom Bannon, Beth Crow, Penny Nelson Schlegel, who Tony already mentioned, Lonnie Parks, Lorcy Pinkerton, Jennifer Pinellas, and Karen Reynolds Chen. And this year we don't have any current candidates, and it is an awesome responsibility and job to earn this. This is not just easy practice, and to do it during a pandemic would be a bigger challenge than we would even want our teachers to take on. But I expect that there will be some folks who are interested in doing that next year. And we appreciate their hard work and their professionalism because they've worked hard to earn this honor. So I want to thank them. And we also just want to thank all our teachers who are working under such tough circumstances this year and doing such an outstanding job.
Lynn, could I just add my kudos too, because
Yes.
I happen to know how difficult a program it is. I went through it myself, and everybody that does it comes out with way more to give the kids than when they started. But it is a hard road, and congratulations to all those people.
Thank you. Thank you. That's well said. Thank you, Stanley.
Thank you. Next thing we go into reports, financial report. Is this report by Marcy?
It's my report, but it is a prepared by, so do any of you have questions for me about it?
Nope.
Okay, hearing none. Thank you. Hearing none, we'll go 21-22 budget planning timeline. Lynn.
Thank you very much. We provided you with a 65-step budget planning process that began in December and culminates hopefully with the board approval in August. It is a time-consuming and detailed plan, but it's necessary to ensure that we have good financial stewardship of our district, and we will be keeping the board apprised and looking for your input along the way, as well as, of course, our staff. So if you have any questions?
I've done a lot of budgeting. Only in education does somebody write down all 65 steps. So good job.
Yeah.
I don't have any questions.
Yeah, we might be a little obsessive about this.
Yeah, but
Yes, you are.
the great news is that because you have it all scheduled out and mapped out, we can use that in the future as to make sure it's an outline for any other year too.
Thank you.
So thank you.
I see
And
Melissa.
it ensures all stakeholders are involved.
Yep.
So I appreciate that.
Hey, Melissa, you just joined us. We were talking about if you have any questions about the timeline for the 21-22 budget.
No, I don't. Thank you. Good evening. Sorry, I'm late.
I know, I got it. Thank you.
Good evening.
Next is prepared by Lynn, again, on insurance report.
Yes, this is our annual report on unemployment insurance. And I'd like to ask if you have any questions. that I'd like, if you don't, I'd just like to take time to recognize Holly Mortensen, who is our district expert on unemployment. And during this tough time of furlough, when our staff applied for unemployment, Holly was in the lab every Tuesday helping them. She worked on the shared work program, answered questions, made corrections, listened to people. And I just want to let you know how much I appreciate her and the good work that she's done for us.
Thank you. Any questions for Lynn? None. We'll move to the next one. The pandemic reopening program. That's the one I wanted. Tony.
Yes.
How do you go?
Before I turn this over to Steve Rabb, I want to thank our building leaders for doing such a great job in reopening our schools over the past 2 weeks. It's been a very challenging effort, and every detail has caused great concern, but each of the concerns turned into solutions. And I'm very pleased with the leadership that has been shown by our principals in our schools. You know, we're in the people business, and we're only as good as the people who are out front. And out front, we have Alicia Jensen and Christy Ellenwood and Aaron Albers, who've done a fantastic job over the past 2 weeks. So we're excited about the next wave of students coming next week. And we look forward to their success over the following weeks. And then we will bring our 4th and 5th graders soon thereafter. So again, a shout out to our leaders for doing such a great job. And Steve is here to introduce our principals one more time.
Yeah, well, I don't know even how to put a cherry on top of that, because you nailed it. You really nailed it. I mean, with the kind of thing that we're attempted to do and successfully completed last week and this week, it doesn't work without the high quality leadership that we have witnessed and that we have in our district. I continue to be impressed by the work that our leaders are doing, not just in the organizational and the logistical kind of structures and stuff, but it's actually working the culture of their schools while they do it, knowing that even though they're working their tails off to make this happen, the heavy lifting actually ends up in the classroom. And they're doing it in such a way that the teachers are ready to take it on. And even this morning, the 2 secondary principals had stand-up meetings talking about the return dates, and they experienced that kind of that shock and awe of this is real and what's going to happen. And you can see smiles on Alicia and Christy's faces as they're like, yep, that happened to us a couple weeks ago. And as we go into it, their methodical and thoughtful planning, the empathy that they use, still keeping kids in the forefront of it. As the teachers are now, we're rolling in this experience for them, and the message starts to get spread by the teachers that are now experiencing it. Hey, this isn't as bad as it seems. This is actually working, and we're safe, and it's great to have kids back in our classroom. We're just going to kind of see this momentum build. And so Christy and Alicia are going to speak a little bit about their experience at bringing it back. And then Chris is going to talk a little bit about it, because it should be really, and I think we've said it before, but I don't think we can overstate that the reason it works is the combination of what I just spoke to, but that under the framework that Chris has worked so hard to develop, so that when we go into this situation, we're doing it by the book. We're using abundance of caution. I mean, we're responding to it. One of the things that we learned quite a while ago was it isn't a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And it's not if somebody's going to come to school infected, it's literally when. And so the plan that Chris has built really anticipates that when these kinds of things happen, we're working on, and we're still working those details out, as Chris will kind of share with you as we experiencing them, and we find out what works and what doesn't work, and we modify it. So really a tremendous piece. So I'll just turn it at this point for Christy and Alicia to talk about it, and then Chris will follow with his stuff.
Well, we are very excited to be here tonight to talk about the opening of elementary. We have been hoping for this since March of last year, that we could bring kids back into the building. And the joy and excitement that we got to experience last week has been well worth all of the planning that you have just heard about. And it has been months and months of planning every detail. What adult is going to stand where? How many times we're going to use hand sanitizer? How you use hand sanitizer? Over communicating where we can, because we really know it's about keeping our kids and our staff safe so that we can open school. And we know that at elementary, it's really important so that we do have the opportunity to welcome our middle and our high schoolers back. So we feel a lot of pressure to do it well so that our other students all have the opportunity to return. There was quite a bit of preparation and planning, from creating orientation videos, which we're very appreciative to have lots of help and support from cameos by some very special guests to show our kids how to enter the building, how to exit the building. Our teachers pre-teaching all of those expectations. If you were on campus ahead of the welcome back days, you would actually see teachers with their laptops or with their cell phones walking the route that kids would take, so that kids knew exactly what to expect those first days, and families knew what to expect. In a typical first day, you would see a campus that's crowded with parents walking their children to class, big brothers and sisters who are walking kids to class, and we had asked, no adults on campus. You're going to say goodbye to your child at the car and send them in to a route that typically we don't use, with adults who have thermometers and gloves and shields. And so we wanted kids to feel as comfortable as possible. So a video of what kids can expect and lots of smiling faces. We also, on those first days, had more adults than we needed, probably triple, so that every 10 feet or so, there would be an adult that just said, welcome, we're glad you're here. Oh, that's a really cool mask. Who's your teacher? Do you know where you're going? Can we help? We saw such excitement from our kids, jumping up and down. Oh, can I show you my backpack? All of those things that were first day. There was actually very little tears or kids wanting to cling to their parents. They were like, bye, Mom, see you later, which was fantastic. Kids were really well prepared for those first days. Most of them knew who their teacher was. I only had one kindergarten tell me that I was her teacher. I was like, no, that's not quite accurate. But teachers had done an excellent job of pre-teaching. Kids were ready to go, excited to learn. And then when we walked into classrooms, and as administrators, I know Alicia, same thing, and Erin, 5 minutes into the day, we had teachers ready to go. And they were welcoming kids, starting the social emotional learning, but also reviewing some of the key concepts, having manipulatives out, and kids were talking about place value. There is not a wasted moment in the day. And I know that there was a question about, is 2 hours, 2.5 hours worth it? Our teachers are making every minute count. I hear kids counting by tens on the way out to recess. They are making the most of every minute. So it is very well worth it. Time is being very well used. We're also excited to be able to put our safety plan into place from the work that Chris has helped us with. Our teachers and our kids are taking it very seriously. I see kids using the hand sanitizer throughout the building. We've provided supplies for each student. So typically, if you walked into kindergarten, you'd see community supplies. We did not ask any family member to supply crayons or pencils. We'd ask families to do that at the beginning of the year to have at home. Both buildings supplied what kids needed at school so that kids only need to bring a mask, a water bottle, their Chromebook, the very, very basics. We've already asked our community a lot, so we're taking care of everything that we possibly can. We've also had fantastic support from our custodial team. They come through the building in between the AM and PM session. They're wiping down every surface, tables, chairs, going through the bathrooms on a frequent basis, those high touch points. That is a really important part of making this successful. It really is a team effort. Both buildings being able to plan together, put our heads together, what's working in your building, how can we learn from each other. It's been hugely successful, and we want to say thank you to, we've had members of district office over at the building. We've had members of the board. Dr. Apostle has been in the buildings. Thank you for trusting us and helping us welcome our kids back. Just the joy and excitement of our kids and our staff. We did have a team leader meeting the second day, and I asked teachers who were on campus and got to work with kids. I said, what was the best part? What have you seen? What advice can we give to the teachers who are going to be welcoming kids back in the next couple of days? And one of the teachers said, the things that we were worried about are not the problems. Kids wearing masks, kids social distancing. They are doing what we ask because they are so excited to be back. So it's been fantastic.
I just have to echo what Christy, and just also thank you to all of you. The support from the school board has been phenomenal, and it's felt throughout our entire system. Seeing you guys here and hearing your celebrations and support for us to be able to do this rollout and bring back our kindergarten and first grade, and now our second and third grade starting next week, so that we can move to fourth and fifth and secondary, has just been phenomenal. We've had amazing support through our entire system to bring back our kids. We know what this means to all of us at the elementary level, but also what that fire and passion brings to our entire system to get to have kids back in schools, and that momentum starting at elementary just makes big and great movements throughout our entire system. I would agree with Christy. The things that we were worried about, I was really worried about kindergartners and the car drop off. And I have done the announcement for the kindergarten parents. It is time to leave the school now. Please go home so your kindergartners can start the day. And this year to be like, you're going to leave your student at the car and we're going to walk your kid into class. I only had one kid who was like, but I know you, Mrs. Jensen. I'm like, you need to carry my walkie-talkie? Okay. And then now I follow the green dots. You're right. Let's go. But really, our kids knew it. Our parents knew it. Our parents are learning brand new systems they have never done before. And that's hard learning as adults, to remember that I need to do a wellness screening on my child before I send them to school. But our parents are learning more and more. Today, we're down to just 2. That by the time we need to start, we only had 2 we hadn't gotten yet, and we got them pretty quick. So it's learning that's happening, and we know it's expandable. And just that our staff at every level, our secretaries, our food service, our custodians, our resource pairers, our title lab, everyone has been willing and jumped in to help in every way possible to bring back our kids. We do lunches in a way we've never done them before, because we deliver them to classrooms and people collect their lunches. And it's all hands on deck, and everyone's ready and eager to jump in. They know they're doing it to help kids, and it has just been so wonderful to see. It's been great to see our second and third grade teachers visit our K-1 classrooms these last couple days, so they know, okay, this is what arrival looks like. This is what dismissal looks like. I've got that down. If the kindergartners and first graders can do it, second and third will be just fine. And it's just fun getting to watch those kindergarten first graders as kiddos be like, oh, we're the leader. This is how you do this. And get to tell the second and third grade teachers, no, you have to give me hand sanitizer before I come in the classroom. You're right, we do. So it has just been wonderful to see, and just thank you guys all for the support. And we're super excited to double and bring second and third grade back next week.
Yeah, and to that point, what they're saying about the kids, and Marcy Bannon can attest to this, because we were kind of laughing about it on So when we were out there on day 1 to try to help kids get where they're going, so we're back there on day 2, kindergarten and first grade kids, and we're back there on day 2. And we're like, do you know where you're going? And all this kind of thing. And probably the most classic example was this one little girl. She kind of looked at me, and I'm sure if I'd have been down on a knee, she would have probably patted me on the head and said, you look like a nice man, but I got this. I mean, they were just like, yes, it's the same as what it was yesterday, correct? Yeah. So by the 3rd day, Marcy and I just kind of stood there. We were just eye candy because they didn't need us anymore. So it was pretty amazing that how fast they picked it up. So if that's K1, the rest of it's going to be an absolute breeze.
Very good.
Chris?
Well, thanks for having me talk a little bit tonight. And by the way, what I'm going to talk about with you right now is kind of anticlimactic because they shared so many of the good things that have gone on since this week and last week. And so, but I'm gonna present really quickly some information, some of our learnings this week, and honestly, some learnings from the past 5 months. And so I want to do that really quickly here and just kind of show you. And I bet you can see this because I know how to do this now. And I'm very proud of it, by the way. So one of the things I wanted you to know is that, well, like Steve was mentioning, is that it's the when we will have another infection, when we will have another suspected case, and when we'll have another close contact. And I want you to know is that each of these confirmed cases happened. These have been going on since September. So this is not like this past week. This is all back from September. And we collect this information each time either a staff member or a student is impacted. And I'll call them exclusions. In each of these cases, a student or a staff member would be excluded. And so in regards to our confirmed cases for the year have been 25. We've had 128. So please understand that suspected cases means those kids that we send home with a sniffle. Okay, so that's important for you to know that because we're taking a look at all the different symptoms, and I can't think of another symptom that isn't basically connected with COVID. And so we've had, and this was as of the 16th, we've had a few more since then, 128 suspected cases, and then those close contacts. So for example, a close contact, so you have a student who had a close contact with a relative in the home. They would need to be sent home for those 14 days. So that includes close contacts within the school and close contacts outside of school. As of yet, we have not experienced what we call a COVID-19 outbreak. An outbreak is considered 2 or more infections in one location. So if you have a student who is in one classroom and a student is considered in another classroom and they're not connected another way, that would not be considered an outbreak. But if you have 2 students within a classroom and they are connected, now because if they're not connected, it's not considered an outbreak. If you have a teacher who is COVID positive and infects another student through a close contact, that would be considered a close contact infection and would be considered an outbreak in one location. Does that make sense? Because you could have multiple different people who are infected and not be considered an outbreak. In regards to masks, I got to be really honest with you. I'm honestly sick and tired of talking about masks. And I really am. I won't go any farther than that. But one of the things that I've learned is that people generally don't know how to wear them, including the adults. People are still not up to. We've been living this since last August. Christy brought this up. It's like we've been living this and expect people to get it right off the bat. So what type of mask to use when? What type of when and where to wear the masks? How to care for the masks by washing them. Should I be wearing more than one mask, which the CDC is now saying you should be being double masking? We have enough masks to do that. Should people, in regards to the surgical masks, should people be changing those through the day? The answer is they probably should be changing them through the day because they get wet. And so we want to make sure, and then making sure that all the masks are properly formulated on or put onto their faces. Actually, the kids are actually doing a really good job with that because they know that it has to be covering their face, their nose, and their mouth. Steve and I will be talking a little bit about the description and the semester move and the impact on the semester move. Daily health screenings. 2 things we've learned so far. Number one, we had a little bit of students and staff, not students and parents bypassing entry and going directly to portables. We fixed that right away. Students were generally, some of our students have been coming all year, dropped off, kids just went back to the portables and not thinking that they had to go through a checkpoint. We took care of that by providing colored stickers at Ptarmigan Ridge. So that was automatically taken care of. Alicia took care of that right away. And then the other part is the attestation questions and guidelines were only in English. You know what? You'd think I'd be on top of things. So now as of at 5:30 tonight, the attestation and guidelines have been translated into Spanish and Russian, along with the directions. And so those have been taken care of, and paper copies will be available. We found at the first day of school that we had several kids who didn't have their attestation done, and some of those kids are students who don't currently speak English, and so and their parents don't either, and so that creates a problem. We also have our testing program, our COVID testing, staff weekly testing. Currently, we have 108 108 staff participating in the testing program. I'd like to keep a push on this because it will make a difference. We have to keep pushing on it because number one, I have enough tests. Number two, I want to make sure that we're testing as many people as possible on a weekly basis so we keep each other safe. One of the issues has been people are worried about false positives. As of yet, we've had all false readings or false testing so far with the testing, but people are worried about the false positives. And so we got to get the message out that please, it's all about making sure that those persons who are asymptomatic aren't spreading the wealth. The next piece is N95 Fit Testing. We have 12 staff who have signed up for fit testing for our high-risk jobs, such as early intervention, life skills, and some of our STEM classes. The Safety Mitigation Guide, or the Safety Guide, has been updated and on the web. And then we are continuing staff. We're talking tomorrow, actually, with our local law enforcement, Tony, I think, or with our with Zane.
Emergency services.
Emergency services. Tomorrow we have another meeting regarding creating a vaccination site for our community, and most importantly, and well, I guess it's not most important, but as important, making sure that our staff get an opportunity to be vaccinated. I've also made contacts with Safeway Albertsons, and that's the same group that we worked with when we had the current with the measles outbreak. Finally, we've actually updated some of our quarantining and isolation guidelines for the district. We've also continuing to fine tune, including tomorrow. Problem is I went to a legal training today regarding, believe it or not, masks during sports season. And there are some legal guidelines we have to follow, not only for our athletes, but also with our spectators. And then starting next week, we're going to be starting a daily, I do not enjoy doing newsletters, but we're going to be sending out safety messages to our staff on a routine basis to keep reminding them of the importance and keeping a little gentle push on our staff to maintain those, because honestly, it's real easy to get relaxed. And especially if nothing's happened, or even if something has happened and you're involved, it's easy to be relaxed. And so we want to keep a gentle nudges to make sure that people are feeling safe and are safe in our system. That's all I got. So I'm going to turn this off.
Thank you, Chris.
Yep. Stop presenting. Here we go.
And then Chris, go ahead and dovetail right into the next part on the special ed, the AB piece that you and I are talking about.
Yeah. So one of the things that occurred at the transition is that we had about 8 families who thought they were going to get more of the same. So they wanted to keep their kids home. They wanted to have their children have basically the same teachers. They wanted their children to have the same schedule. And so they signed up for option B. What they found is that option B is structured much differently. It's an alternative learning environment, which includes a limited interaction with the teacher, and also a more flexible schedule for their children. And so as a result, they were surprised to hear that it was much different. And so we've had to come up with some very, they've been hard conversations, but we also ensured that, number one, that they would receive all of their special education. They would receive make sure that all of their 504 plans were intact. And we've been able to we've been able to take a look at the program and dovetail it with some specialist time and work with the teachers in regards to helping the families create a more structured day for their kids. And that seemed to work. I also worked with the option B teachers, because we wanted to make sure that we were giving a consistent message to our families and to our other staff who weren't very clear about what option B was either. And so we were able to do that as well. So we still have some planning to do with some of our families, but they're becoming a little bit more aware of what the difference is between option A and option B.
Yeah, and I don't know if any board members have heard from any community members on this issue. One of the things, in case you do or whatnot, when we were choosing from our options, option A, which is come back face-to-face hybrid learning, option B, full remote learning, and what Chris is expressing is people kind of wanted an option C, which is to be able to keep our kids at home and be taught by their teacher. Sort of like keeping on with what A was at the beginning of the year, but then teachers also have kids physically in their class at the same time. We did look at that as an option. We know that there are systems even around us that are doing that, where they are requiring their teachers to not only teach the kids that are physically in the classroom, but as well as remote. So they've got teaching going on a camera, and they've got teaching going on in a desk. And there's no question that it addresses that issue of allowing families to keep their kids home and be taught by a teacher instead of a computer program. Because of the time that we've had to look at that model, what we really discovered, and I'll own this myself because I was the first proponent of it when I heard about it and saw it in October of last fall, and I said, this answers all of these questions. The big question it hasn't answered for any system is the impact it actually has on the teacher and the teaching. And it has a significant impact on the teacher and the teaching, and although unscientific, I would say it negates some of the reasonableness of that as an option. We decided that we wanted to focus, and I think Christy did a very nice job of saying that the teachers are maximizing every moment they have those kids with them. So we wanted to develop our return process where we're reducing that distraction. There's so many distractions. The masks, the social distancing, the hygiene, and if you add to it now, we're in a dual platform of physically teaching kids in the classroom as well as virtual, I mean, you're really making things very, very complicated. And so it results in a reduction of options for our community. You can either come to school face-to-face, or you can learn remote. And albeit, as Chris has said, and Chris has worked with several families that just really didn't work for them with special ed kids, and we've made those modifications. But just to let you know where we landed in those two options, and if you hear, I don't know if you have or if you would, you'll have our justification for why we did it the way we did it. And so before Marcy talks about enrollment, are there any questions about that?
I want you to know that I have I don't know if you know, my wife's a teacher, and she has a strong influence over the way I feel about this. And so I've been joking a little bit, but you know, one of the things that's very difficult, and I'll tell you right now, our special education teachers have been doing in-person and remote at different times and at the same time since the beginning of the school year. And it's very, very difficult. And my wife, Kathy, has done the same thing. It's very, very difficult to do all at once. And it does impact, like Steve said, it does impact how you teach. It impacts what you teach if you do both at the same time. And so I think this was a good decision. It also lays off pressure off of our teachers, who have had a really difficult year. And I think that the way in which we did it to create two distinct options versus having a hybrid of both, I think we'll be able to maintain our staff, and I see it as very supportive of staff, just maintaining, have a clear delineation between the two options.
I just wanted to say one quick thing about, I also have been hearing from the teachers, and a lot of them are really capitalizing also on the fact that there are fewer kids in the room. So while it might be not a full day in our minds, less kids, more time for each kid. So, and teachers have been really emphasizing that that asset. So I know that's been a plus.
The hard thing at elementary, at the kindergarten and first grade, has been, how do you social distance from kids? And so that's been a real, I think that's been a challenge. And at the same time, the teachers are understanding it and actually doing a great job of trying to navigate that particular safety mitigation strategy. But it's a hard one, especially with preschool through first grade. I don't know if it's impossible, but it's close to it.
So I'm talking about enrollment, and as we've talked about a few times, our enrollment is definitely down from budget, which we've talked about multiple times. As of February, we are down on our average, because the average is what we get funded for. We are currently down 141.23 students. The numbers have been holding pretty steady. We were wondering if we would see a spike of kindergarten and first grade as they came back. I checked with the secretaries at the schools, and so far there's been a couple more enrolling, but there's not a gigantic spike. So one of the questions that I know we were talking about as they were planning reopening is how many parents are going to enroll now that we're in person. And we thought, honestly, personally, I thought the number was going to be much bigger, and it really hasn't been. So the parents that chose to keep their kids home are still choosing to keep their kids home, which could mean that we have a very large kindergarten class next year. So our middle school and high school are holding pretty steady. High school's been above budget most of the time. Middle school's pretty close. It's really our K-3 that's been down. The plus side of our K-3 being down is we are getting additional funding that we haven't gotten in the past, because we are at easily at the 17-to-1 ratio for teacher to students. And that did generate some extra funds for us, was help offset the shortage from budget of the decrease in enrollment. So that did help. Any questions?
No, we'll wait and see what happens with the other schools.
Yes, definitely. I'm looking forward for that. We'll move on to, if any questions, we'll move on to grade 6 to 12 reopening plan and the credit deficiencies.
Yes, as you are all aware, the board received a memo from me that I would be making a recommendation to the board on March 4th at the board work session coming up, and here tonight to talk about that proposal that will be subject to board approval for the reopening of our middle school and high school. A reopening of our middle school would happen on Monday, March 22nd, and the high school on Monday, March 29th, a week before spring break. And I think that there's some excitement brewing around the community with that decision. So we hope that the board will pay close attention to this evening's presentation and ask questions if you have any, please.
Yeah, so Dave's going to present his screen for us. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah. And as I do that, one of the things that I want us to be really conscious of is that as we kind of launch into this, what we're trying to do tonight. Can I get a thumbs up if you can see that? Blue field. All right. Is tonight give a really high level view of our intent and direction. Clearly, when we get to March 4, we'll have more details, and a lot of that's going to emerge as we work with our labor partners for our full launch. But we are just really looking, frankly, for support from the board to carry this work forward as we engage in much smaller grain size details moving forward. I know Cliff has some commentary that he wants to address directly around credit acquisition.
Yeah, so it's kind of a note. I know there's a community interest in what's going on with our students, and is COVID going to cause students not to graduate from high school? It's kind of the big picture question I get a lot. Honestly, we're going to need students to make sure they're staying engaged and they're getting their credits done. But we have a very robust plan, which I can go in deep detail with of what's going on at the high school to make sure that our students are on track to graduate, which they are. We have a plan for virtually every single student to graduate on time. It's taken a lot of effort from our staff, but there's not going to be a large portion of students that are not going to graduate from Oregon High School because COVID happened. I just want to let you know that. If you need further details on that, I can go into those details. So Dave and I are going to try to keep this as high level as possible to leave you time for questions so we can go deeper dive into anything that you want. So our curtness is not to disrespect the board. Our curtness is to allow you space to ask questions if necessary. So first of all, our semester 1 success rate at Oregon Middle School and Oregon High School is very similar to what you guys are going to see across the state. A failure rate is approximately doubled at both the high school and the middle school. And I've talked to the peers across the SPSL, and that's about where everyone else is. We actually have probably done a lot better than our peers around us. So Oregon Middle School, 81% of students pass all their classes, and Oregon High School, 86%. You want that next slide, Dave?
Yeah, so this is actually the graphic that's up right now. It's a combination of D's and F's. I think more important and kind of a different way of looking at it is, Director Kinnenberg, I think this was one of your direct questions earlier this afternoon after you had a chance for initial review, was looking at breakout by building. And so this is actually a visualization of the percentage of students who were successful in green at each of their in their courses. And there are some issues with the data reporting tool. especially around, and Cliff and I have chatted about this, the OHS Learning Lab. The N size is really small as associated there. So there's we've got some data cleanup to do. This is a part of our new data warehouse, which is called Five Lab. And so we do need to fine tune the interface between Skyward, which is our database, our academic data warehouse, and Five Lab, which helps us with our visualization tools.
Hey, can I ask a quick question on that one?
Yep, I got one too.
The learning lab, is that?
We'll give you those
basically
figures. I don't want to dwell on that because that's in the past. We have a lot of interventions we've done with those students in the past, but that's kind of a story.
Cliff, that was a really weird glitch.
Yeah, we lost you. He's out.
The lights are on, but no one's home.
Hey, Cliff, you froze.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
What were the questions, though?
George, would you repeat your question? Thanks.
Yeah, so the OHS Learning Lab, is that basically option B, or is that something different then?
Correct. Yeah, that's option B.
And so our Ording High School, these are the students that either for access reasons or for their 504 plans or IEPs that we've had to bring into in-person learning already, correct?
No, Ording High School would be all students in option A, both the students that came in for in-person, the students you just mentioned, and all of our students who are online going to their Google Meets. So that's the option A students. Option B is represented in OHS Learning Lab.
All right, thank you.
Harry?
Yeah, I was just looking. For me, it's always helpful to compare previous years, and so I just backed it up to the previous slide, and I think I've answered my question. So, thank you.
Just make sure there, we've noticed the failure rate. We have about the same number of students who are failing. They're just failing at a little higher rate. So students who might have failed one class are now failing 2 or 3. So it's similar to the amount of students. It's just a little more severe of a problem. So
yeah.
Okay.
You want to go into our reopen? Obviously, Tony gave you guys the dates. OMS March 22nd, OHS March 29th. We just felt like we should have a 1 week break in there, but we definitely want to start it before spring break. We're kind of right near that 1 year mark, so we wanted to push hard to hit that 1 year mark and get students back to school. Dave, you want to talk about schedule?
Yeah, so we had we've explored a number of options for scheduling. One of them would have been potentially what we were calling a compressed schedule, where students would have actually been on campus for a little less than the traditional school day, still running a 6-period day. There's a bunch of logistics that make that really, really hard for us to run. And so we are really looking at a return to what we would call kind of the traditional bell schedule. Now, inside the school day, we have not defined the length of class periods. We're looking at some ideas around staggered passing periods and extended passing periods to mitigate traffic flow in the hallways. So we're not going back to it's unlikely that we'll land back at the original bell schedule as kids might have known it or adults might have known it for the last few years, but the shape of the school day in its totality will be pretty similar to what students in the community recognize. And then when we're thinking about our 80 hybrids, we're looking at, and Cliff and I are going back and forth on this, and we've actually we've printed out every single roster that we have, every single class roster. So it's a multi-100-page report, and we've got staff that have gone through and they're counting out the number of students A through K or L through Z that we can have or A through L and M through Z that we can have, and how that maps against the capacity, the rated capacity of each classroom, to see where we need to make that division of our student populations for the A-B divisions. So like I said, we're trying to stay pretty high level right now. There's a lot of really fine technical work that needs to be done, and we'll be ready to share more of those details. Matt, the counselor, is chuckling right there because that is detailed technical work. We'll have that ready to go on March 4.
So
orientations.
I have a question on that schedule. For kids who kind of have a hybrid, they're option B kids, but they have an option A class, one option A class. How are we going to work them in? Because obviously they're going to show up. They're not going to show up at the beginning of the day and stay till the end of the day. I would assume they would show up for their particular class if they showed up at all.
So I think there's a couple things that might happen. One would be, I mean, it would be pretty similar, frankly, to experience we've had in the past with kids who are enrolled in homeschool, but come to school for music or art or band or CTE. We can accommodate that. There may be some kids who are continuing to have access issues, and I think that we could accommodate students working on campus. We also have some other kids who are in option A, who are hybrid only, for example, their elective class. I know at the middle school, I've got some kids that are enrolled in a foreign language class that they've elected to continue taking through second semester, even though they moved from option B to option A. We would accommodate that, and we'd set the kiddo up with a space to work and inside their regular school day, and maintain their work and edgenuity on their foreign language. So those sorts of, honestly, those are pretty case-by-case specifics, and we'll be able to manage those.
George, specifically at the high school, those students will report to the lab for their online courses, and then they'll report to their classes during their physical in-person courses.
Okay, so they are expected to show up at the opening bell, do the morning check-in like everybody else does, then go to the lab to do their option B and tell their class. Okay, that makes sense.
And like Dave said, we can go case by case. So if there's families that can self-transport, we can certainly work around that.
Yep.
So orientation is one of the big concerns for the community and for staff and certainly Dave, Kevin, Matt, and I, is those transition years for 6th grade and 9th grade. Even though they're well into their 6th grade and 9th grade years, they still have never been on the physical campus. They still don't know where to go, how to navigate, where's my counselor, all those things. So we don't want to lose that. So we're going to, for the first time actually, provide busing for our 6th grade and 9th grade orientations from 7:30 to 9:30 for the first few days, the week prior to starting school, so we can have an orientation and onboard our students. We're working with our leadership classes, our leadership teachers, and our counselors to set up an orientation for those transition years.
And so what we're, one of the points of emphasis that we've had with our staff at both buildings is to ensure folks that we are staying with the safety protocols that are already in place, and we're already pretty well practiced, frankly. We've got 40 kids a day on campus at the middle school, and they come to the door. They've either got their attestation done on their phone, or we've got a printout. We can check that. We temp screen them. Staff are still expected to do their attestation every day. And then in both buildings, both secondary buildings, teachers are actually going to be doing temp screens at the classroom doors. One, there's a couple of reasons. One, we believe we're going to get a more accurate reading at the classroom door because the kids will have been inside for 90 seconds or 2 minutes. And two, it's really giving teachers some locus of control over who's coming into their classroom. And so that's been honestly really well received by our OEA partners. And so we look forward to that process. Both buildings, we've got the little hand scanners, and handheld no-touch thermometers for every single teacher, and folks that have first period plan are going to help us at the doors with verification of attestation. So we're building those systems.
This might seem like a silly question, but the kids coming from PE class, are they going to be given some grace on that temperature? They've had a hard day.
Yeah, so we're checking.
Go for it, Cliff.
We're taking temperatures only before school, prior to first period. Certainly we have thermometers, so if a teacher's worried about a kid and they look like they're, that your parent alarm goes off that a kid looks like they're not feeling good, we can check their temperature at any time. But yeah, we're not planning on checking them each period.
Okay, good. Thank you.
So classrooms, furniture, we get a lot of questions about this kind of minutia, so we thought we'd just cover it. Physical distancing and furniture. So students are going to have to be physically distanced by 6 feet. We know that a lot of things are very hard about the elementary and a lot of things are easier. One of the things I noticed, I'm glad I'm not an elementary principal because the logistics that were required from the elementary principals were amazing to get kids into the building and out of the building. Whereas secondary kids, parents have no problem going, yeah, I'll drop them off at the curb and see you at 2:15. So that stuff's really easy. Physical distancing purposefully is going to be a challenge to secondary students because trying to keep them 6 feet apart is difficult because their natural inclination is going to be to be attracted to one another and stay close to their buddies. Yeah. High five, punch, whatever they do in the hallways. So we're going to work really hard on educating our kids. Furniture's already been cleared out in all of our classrooms. It's being stored in one of our gymnasiums. So we have the furniture down to the minimum. We're going to have one-way hall flows throughout the buildings where we can. OHS has unique capacity issues because we have more classes and portables than we do inside of the buildings. So we have lots of different entrances, like Dave said. That's why we're going to be moving temperature and attestation to the classroom door. Capacities as low as 14 in some classes to as high as 22. OMS is similar, down to 12 all the way up to 31 students, depending on the room. So we're thinking that we can, by and large, mostly fit 50% of our kids in any of our classrooms. And where we can't, we're going to have to use counselor magic to move kids around. As Tony mentioned earlier, we're thankful for our counselors, and they're going to be much appreciated here in the next month. Yeah, to Kevin's point, 31 is the band room. Any questions on classrooms or that physical capacity?
So
actually, I have a question. Sorry, Cliff, we've got there's horticulture class that's outdoors. Like, are you using alternative space for some of these classes?
Yeah, we have a lot of alternative space ideas. Even though our horticulture class is outdoors, we now have the brand new greenhouse, which hopefully soon is going to be up and running. It's a fully heated space, and it's meant to be classroom size. And he also has a classroom space as well. So he has both the greenhouse lab and his classroom. Band is looking at using the stadium if they want to play a more robust tune. Using the new guidance that's come out, we can use the outside. Dave at the middle school, Jeff Smith is planning on using the stadium as well. So yeah, we're going to be maximizing every physical space we can.
Okay. Thank you.
And one of the daily dilemmas that we're going to have at secondary that elementary has navigated in a different way is the need to serve our kids on campus. We'll be worked with Lynn and Joanne around food services. We're going to have everything's going to be grab and go. Kiddos are going to grab their lunch, and it'll include the next day's breakfast when they grab it. So they have breakfast. Does a couple of things. One, it might actually provide some relief and space for transportation services if they're no longer having to do the midday bus runs, which have become a real press for that department. And then we've got a couple of ideas around this idea of name card seating documentation. We know that when we go to lunches, we have to be able to keep track of where kids are in the event that we have to quarantine and then contact trace. And so kids at both buildings are probably going to be seated in chairs, no lunch tables, because we have to be able to get, we still have to be able to get 100 students, 100 plus students through each lunch service in our common spaces. But then kiddos will leave a little tag that has their name on it, so we know where they sat, and we can collect those and keep that kind of against a grid view idea, rather than trying to do assigned seats for 100+ kids in our lunchroom. We're building in a mechanism so that we can maintain accurate contact tracing. And we recognize that this is important because this is probably the longest period of time during the day that kids are going to be unmasked and together. And so we recognize the safety component that we have to be able to uphold.
Who will keep track of where all those name tags were?
So what you do is you pick them up in order, and to Dave's point, you can place them against a grid. So at any time, if you have a stack, it's effectively ordered. Dave and I also both have cameras to back that up. So we have cameras covering our cafeteria that we can also.
Okay, I thought it was paperwork.
No, so we'll keep it, and I'm sure, after a while we're going to have a stack of these that are kind of filed, but I'm not currently planning on having anybody like enter that into a spreadsheet on a daily basis. We'll have access to it if we need it.
In the time it takes to organize it, maybe one of the kids could build an app for that.
Yeah, maybe a coding, maybe you could have the classes, code something for that, you're right.
Yeah.
I love that idea, Carrie.
And lastly, the big thing that people like to inquire about is masks and social distancing. So the biggest push has been students like to wear gaiters. That's kind of the first comfort level for people that switch over to masks is at the gaiter because it's a lot looser. But the nature of that looseness is it's not as safe. We've had quite a few students so far that come in with masks, and honestly, I haven't had a problem. If you have just a normal conversation at the human level with young adults to say, gaiters don't work because they're not as tight, this is what we require, they say, okay, give me one, and they switch over. So kids have been great about switching to a multi-layer mask. Students that do have a major problem to the masks or the social distancing, we're probably going to be a little bit firmer than Matt Carlson, Cliff Reese, Kevin, and David are used to. And if you can't stay within those safe measures that we've put out, then we're gonna have to switch you to a remote learning atmosphere. And so far the students have been able to navigate that just fine, and parents have understood. So I think about 6 months ago, it might've been a lot more of a fight than it is now. I think people have just acquiesced to this is what is socially acceptable, and I'm just going to have to do it. Yeah. So.
Yep.
Any questions or comments from the board members?
I do, and I did not get a chance to review this before the meeting, which I arrived too late. So I thank you for your understanding. I have kind of a couple. First of all, the logistics of getting middle school and high schoolers back is blowing my mind right now. All the things that wow, I don't even know. I thought maybe it would be easier to move the teachers around from classroom to classroom than the students. But how do you do that in a master schedule? You just don't. But anyway, I just want to, first of all, shout out that trying to deal with all these if-thens is an incredible feat. One of my questions, when you're talking about an AB schedule, two questions actually. I'm assuming this is a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday type of, okay. And then you have it by last name, and not to throw another wrench in, but with blended families where you're going to have siblings, I assume that there's going to be some kind of a work with families for that issue if needed.
Absolutely. And so we'd actually, back in August into early October, when we thought we were going to be launching a hybrid, we'd figured out how to run it by primary guardian last name. And honestly, that worked okay. It was a little clunky there, but we got it to work at the buildings where there was a couple of other systems that we interface with that it just really it wasn't as effective. And so we know we've got blended households. And so we're happy to make the accommodations to make that happen. And early, when we were doing that work, there was some presumption that K or pre-K through 12, we'd be following a similar model. When elementary moved to the AM PM to have daily contact with our kids, the necessity for doing the split by guardian last name or household last name kind of fell apart a little bit. And so it honestly gave us at the secondary a little bit of freedom to do that. But we know we have some blended households, and we'll make some shifts to accommodate those families.
And I didn't have a doubt about that at all. It was on my mind, so I needed to verbalize it.
No, I appreciate it. And part of what's important to both me and myself and Cliff is that every time, we sit down and we think we got something pretty well figured out, somebody asks a really pointed question, and it's like, ugh, all right, we gotta address that as well. And so I'd much rather have those kinds of conversations now than on March 23rd, frankly.
For sure. And then lastly, I know that at the very beginning of the year, when we went to this all remote kind of learning in the ABs, we had a schedule provided to the board that kind of showed us what the outline looked for the students. I'm just curious, what are the students going to do on their off days of school? If you're going to school on Monday and Tuesday, what are they doing for their educational needs on Wednesday, Thursday? Like, is there going to be, scheduled learning for them during those days? And how is that going to work if the teacher's going to be at school teaching other classes, obviously?
Yeah, those off days, that's going to be all asynchronous learning, similar to what they do synchronously now is what they're going to be doing asynchronously then. I'm not going to over promise and under deliver on that. Talking to all the local high schools and even high schools across the state that we've been lined up with to discuss it with. Asynchronous learning is a lot similar to homework, and judging by everyone on the screen, I know what age your kids are and the experiences you've had with your kids. Homework over the last probably 15 years has really become uncommon to get a lot of learning out of homework. That hasn't changed. In fact, at least when we had homework years ago, it's usually when families were home or parents were home to kind of help support that. Asynchronous learning during the school day when families are working, it's a really hard pull. Honestly, our preteens and our teens, their prefrontal cortex is not formed yet, and their ability to self-regulate, we've noticed in this virtual environment, is really diminished. And if students were able to work on their own in a learning environment independently and self-schedule, we probably wouldn't have jobs, and they're just not good at it. So we have gotten better asynchronous learning, but we've realized that we've had to flip our classrooms a little bit and have the learning outside the class and the work done in front of the teacher, because that's just what gets things done. So there will be asynchronous learning scheduled. It probably won't be as robust as the days that are in front of teachers, honestly.
That's great, and all your points are it hasn't been that long since my kids were in your school. But it kind of goes to my final point too, about not only do we want these seniors to graduate from high school, but we want them to graduate prepared. So, so that they can go out there and get that job or continue on with their education after high school. So I'll be interested, Principal Freeze, to kind of see those details that you have lined up to help those kids, support them, and get them, on that track to success. So I don't need them tonight, but I will be interested to see them when you have them. Just because I know how each kid is different. All three of my kids that went to Ording High School, all very different learners. One, barely made it out, and the other two one way, and one was very butterfly-y and very good student.
Look at them now.
I look at them now, and they're all very, very, very successful. So I couldn't be happier. But yeah, so that's just my 2 cents. I just want to say thank you so much for the presentation, for all of the thought. I know it hasn't come from just you, Principal Freeze, and Principal Slagle. I know Kevin Collins was involved, and Matt Carlson, and of course all the central office team. So just thank you for all the details. I know that there's going to be a lot more coming, and you're going to be gray when it's over.
Any other comments? just wanted to thank you guys for doing the hard work. Just remember, 90% of the time it's going to work. You got that 10%, you're going to have to make changes. So just keep up the good work.
So I'd like to go ahead and dismiss the principals. Thank you guys for coming tonight, doing your presentations. Really appreciate it. Go home, get some sleep. It's another day tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Good job.
All right, we'll move right along with the agenda. Second read. Have any questions, comments? Is this an action item, Miney? I don't think so.
Item.
Oh, okay. Yep. So we need a motion.
I will move to approve the second reading of policy considerations for all those included in board docs.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next one is an action item. Is the consent agenda items 1 through 6. Any comments?
Nope.
And we need a motion to approve the consent agenda as prepared. Can we get a motion?
Motion to approve consent agenda as prepared.
Second that.
First and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passed. The next one is the action item is the surplus items. We're selling stuff. Any questions?
Yeah, any questions? This is an action item and we'd ask for your approval so that we can surplus the vehicles that are no longer functioning.
Yep.
The buses, the old buses.
Yeah. I'll move to approve. I'll move to approve disposal of the surplus items as presented.
I'll second it.
The first and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we get down into board comments. You got student rep. She's still on? I think she left. Anybody from, nope, okay. Next is board comments. Any comments from the board? Hearing now, we'll move right along. We'd like to join the meeting at 7:17. You guys have a good night.
Right.
Melissa, you said something? Hold on. Okay. I think Melissa, did you say something? Nope.
No, I was commenting in the comment box. Marcy had made a comment about it being the last Twinkie bus, and my daughter is going to be sad. She loved that giant.
Yes.
Oh, it's the
last
my boy.
Yep.
Oh, it can't drive by without somebody in my family pointing it out.
I'm wondering if somebody will buy it.
There's been a number of requests to purchase that bus, and so
And you cannot change your vote now. It's gone.
Nostalgia doesn't count.
I actually saw the little teeny one drive by the other day, and JJ goes, "That's bus 1. I don't know if it really has a number, but
Can't we plant it somewhere?
All right. All right, Bonnie, go ahead and join the meeting at 7:18. You guys have a good night.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
All right.
Good night.